Picture this, London, 1888. The air in the East End is thick with coal smoke, factory grime, and a creeping, ever-present fog. In the district of Whitechapel, over 1 million of the city's poorest souls are crammed into dimly lit, labyrinthine streets. It's a place of desperate poverty, gin palaces, and shadowed alleyways. This is the world that gave birth to a nightmare, a legend that would chill the blood of generations to come. This is the story of Jack the Ripper. Our story begins in the bleak, pre-dawn hours of August 31st. A carman named Charles Cross is walking down a dark street called Bucketts Row on his way to work. He spots something lying on the ground ahead, a dark bundle near a gateway. As he gets closer, he realizes it's the body of a woman. Her throat has been cut so viciously that she's nearly decapitated. This is Mary and Polly Nichols, a 43-year-old mother of 5 who had fallen on hard times. But this was no simple street robbery gone wrong. The examining doctor noted other, more disturbing injuries. The nature of the cuts was precise, suggesting the killer had some knowledge of human anatomy. The press seized on the gruesome details, and a whisper of fear began to spread through Whitechapel. A new kind of monster was on the loose. The fear didn't have to wait long to be fed. Just 8 days later, on September 8th, the sun rose over the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. In the pale morning light, another body was found. This was Annie Chapman. Like Polly, she was in her 40s and had been living a precarious existence on the streets. But this time, the killer's brutality had escalated. Not only was her throat cut in the same savage manner, but her abdomen had been laid open and her uterus had been removed with chilling skill. The city was now in a full-blown panic. The papers screamed headlines about the Whitechapel murderer. Women were afraid to walk the streets, even in daylight. Vigilante groups formed, patrolling the alleys with clubs and whistles, determined to catch the phantom in their midst. The police, led by Scotland Yard, were completely baffled. They had no witnesses, no motive, and a killer who seemed to melt back into the fog as quickly as he appeared. As the city reeled, the killer decided to play a game. The Central News Agency received a letter, written in red ink, that began with the chillingly casual salutation, "Dear Boss." The author bragged about his work, derided the police for being unable to catch him, and threatened to clip the lady's ears off in his next job. The letter was filled with a macabre, boastful tone that captured the public's imagination. It was signed with a name that would become immortal, Jack the Ripper. At first, police thought it was a hoax, one of hundreds of letters they were receiving. But the name stuck. The monster now had a title. Then came the double event. In the early hours of September 30th, the killer's bloodlust reached a fever pitch. He struck not once, but twice in the same night. The first victim was Elizabeth Stride, found in a dark yard off Berner Street. Her throat was cut, but unlike the others, her body wasn't mutilated. Police theorized that the killer might have been interrupted. If so, he was not to be deterred. Less than an hour later, and only a short walk away, the body of Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitres Square, a place located within the prestigious city of London. The attack on Eddowes was the most frenzied yet. Her face was savagely disfigured, and her abdomen was ripped open. Her left kidney and part of her uterus had been taken. This is where the story takes another sinister turn. 3 days after the double murder, a local community leader named George Lusk, who headed a Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, received a small cardboard box in the mail. The spelling in the accompanying letter was atrocious, starting with "From Hell." Inside the box, nestled in paper, was half of a human kidney. The letter's author claimed to have fried and eaten the other half. Medical analysis confirmed it was a human kidney, likely from a woman around 45 years old who was a heavy drinker, a description that fit Catherine Eddowes perfectly. The From Hell letter, combined with the gruesome trophy, cemented Jack the Ripper's reputation as a calculating, taunting ghoul who was reveling in the terror he created. The city held its breath for over a month. The police presence in Whitechapel was overwhelming. Every suspicious character was questioned, every lodging house was searched. But the Ripper remained a ghost. The autumn fog grew thicker, the nights longer. People began to hope, perhaps to believe, that the nightmare was over. They were wrong. The final act of this tragedy was the most horrific of all. On the morning of November 9th, a rent collector knocked on the door of a small, single room at 13 Miller's Court. The woman who lived there, Mary Jane Kelly, was behind on her rent. After getting no answer, the landlord's assistant peered through a broken window pane. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. Mary Kelly, a young woman of only 25, had been the victim of a murderous rage that defied comprehension. She had been killed in her own bed, granting the Ripper the time and privacy he lacked on the streets. The scene was a slaughterhouse. Her body was mutilated beyond recognition. Her organs were placed around the room, her heart taken from the scene. The police officers who arrived, hardened veterans of London's grimmest realities, were seen physically recoiling and weeping at the sight. This was the Ripper's terrible masterpiece, an explosion of violence that seemed to be the culmination of his dark desires. And then silence. After the horror of Mary Kelly's murder, the killing stopped. Jack the Ripper vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared. The London police, humiliated and exhausted, were left with a mountain of evidence but no clear answers. They had interviewed over 2,000 people. They had investigated more than 300 suspects and detained 80. But they never charged a single person with the murders. So who was he? This question has fascinated criminologists, historians, and amateur sleuths for over 130 years. The list of suspects is long and varied, a whodunit cast of characters from Victorian society. Was it Montague John Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher whose body was found floating in the Thames shortly after the last murder? His own family suspected him, believing he had gone insane. Or was it Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish immigrant who worked as a hairdresser in Whitechapel? He suffered from severe mental illness, had a known hatred of women, and was eventually institutionalized. A senior police official from the time named him as a prime suspect in his private memoirs. Then there are the more sensational theories. Some point to Walter Sickert, a famous artist who was fascinated by the murders and even painted scenes inspired by them. Others have proposed a royal conspiracy, suggesting the killer was a member of the royal family or a high-ranking doctor like Sir William Gull, the Queen's physician, covering up a scandal involving Prince Albert Victor. There were theories about a female killer, a Jill the Ripper, or a butcher, a sailor, a quack doctor, the list goes on and on. In recent years, DNA analysis has entered the fray. A shawl said to have been found near Catherine Eddowes' body has been tested multiple times. Some researchers claim the DNA points definitively to Aaron Kosminski. Others fiercely dispute these findings, arguing the shawless history is uncertain and the evidence is contaminated after being handled by so many people over the decades. The truth is, we may never know for sure. The lack of a definitive answer is part of what makes the story so enduring. Jack the Ripper was more than just a serial killer. He was a product of his time, a dark shadow cast by the immense social inequality and urban decay of Victorian London. He exposed the vulnerabilities of the poor and the limitations of the police force. He also, in a strange way, helped create modern crime reporting, with the media frenzy surrounding the case setting a template for centuries to come. His reign of terror was brief, just a few short months in the autumn of 1888. But his legacy is eternal. He remains a faceless phantom, a question mark in the pages of history, the world's most famous unsolved mystery. He is the darkness that lurks in the fog, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can never identify. Thank you for watching. If you're fascinated by historical mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the unexplained. Let us know in the comments which Jack the Ripper theory you find most compelling. See you next time.